As you all might know by now, E3 was cancelled this year, and that has saddened me quite a bit. As I care about E3 a great deal, I decided I would make a video about it and maybe help you see why is it that I, among lots of other people, enjoy it so much. So, why is E3 so important to us in the first place? Before we talk about that, humor me for a second. Picture this. You're hanging out at a pub with your friends on a relaxed summer evening, assuming you're all of legal age. You're all drinking a couple of beers when suddenly you see some people come in and they start installing a large wooden contraption. They put it in the corner. As they finish, you step closer to it and they turn it on. You pull on the small lever and holy shit, you can move the little pellets inside the screen. People start playing with it so much that the pinball machine next to it starts accumulating dust. There's a huge line of people waiting at the door to play and the machine stops working. It broke from all the quarters it got in only its first day of service. This was Pong's debut at Handicap's Tavern in Sunnyvale, California in 1972. First, let's talk about how E3 actually came to be. And to do that, we're gonna have to go a couple of years back. Or a whole lot of years back, actually. Conventions have long been an important part of our collective human history, as we generally tend to have a necessity of coming together to figure a lot of stuff out. Originally, conventions have had a tendency of taking place at the aftermath of wars. The greatest hits being treaties like the ones of Versailles in 1919, of Paris 1483, the Geneva Conventions, and the list could go on and on. But it's important to notice that all of these meetings are tied together by nationalism, and most importantly, they marked important milestones in the way we as a species communicate amongst ourselves as a whole. But more relevant to the topic at hand is the World's Fair, which, even though it had already been going on for a while, it started gaining more relevance and more traction towards the turn of the 20th century. The fair was still marked by nationalism, although generally it wasn't too focused on the politics of it. Rather, it focused on the productivity of nations, which was starting to skyrocket. The future started to become appealing as innovation was becoming the order of the day. It's with the World's Fair that we first saw people coming together to think about the future in a brand new way. That is, being hyped about the future and the marvelous things it could hold for us, rather than just trying to mitigate conflict. Of course, both world wars happened, and even though the World's Fair is still being organized to this day, I think it has lost a lot of its first half of the 20th century charm. Nowadays, I believe its exciting elements have splintered into several other conventions, mainly innovation and trade shows. We got Innovation Summit, but most importantly, we got the CES. The CES, or Consumer Electronics Show, started in 1967. And this is where the first seeds for what would eventually become the E3 were planted. The show, just like E3 was at its early stages, was and still is aimed mainly at industry professionals, not open for the public. On the other hand, the public was up to something by itself. In 1970, we saw the first Comic-Con in San Diego, another seed of what E3 would potentially become, a while after its inception. However, most importantly is the event that succeeded it. I mentioned it in the beginning of the video. Pong was first publicly tested in a bar in 1972. And this proved to be the first time people would come together to enjoy a game of this form, and most likely this was the moment that practically birthed the arcade era. Then into the 80s, the gaming industry itself started to grow. Yet still, most consoles were being introduced through the CES. It wasn't until the 90s that the public started to attend larger-scale gaming conventions. Along with anime cons, a couple of gaming championships started popping up, mainly DexCon, which started in 91. Then, as the 90s were coming to an end, E3 officially opened for the first time in 95. Additionally, the Games Developers Conference, or GDC for short, also opened in 98. And yet, the actual pivot point that E3 took to shapeshift to the way way it is today happened later on. During the early 2000s, we saw a rise of all kinds of fandom cons as chronicled by the newly established social media. Due to its early success throughout the 90s, the E3 had grown and it had garnered more and more attention progressively all the way up to 2006. And after a brief contraction due to cost-related worries, E3 became even larger in 2009. It is around this time that E3 evolved to its current state, as the event started to livestream its main conferences. As E3 started to focus more on its online presence by 2013, some companies decided to create their own e-conferences as a venue to communicate with both fans and investors. Mainly Nintendo and EA and Sony would as well, although much later on. And even though they eventually became separate events, they still happen mostly at around the same time as E3 does, marking a clear E3 season, where people of the gaming community tune in simultaneously to witness the marketing for upcoming games. In 2016, the E3 was open to the public, and now in 2020, as we all know, E3 is cancelled due to recent events. And now that we're all caught up to speed, where does that leave us? Why is E3 important enough for me to make a video about it in the first place? In this video, I'm only talking about a personal perspective of E3's cancellation. Of course, E3's cancellation this year would have several implications for potential industry activity. I've been asking other gaming-oriented people, and they mostly seem to be agreeing upon the fact that E3 is dying. With major companies dropping out and the pandering to the culture, a lot of people don't even bother tuning into the event at all. Some only tune into Nintendo's Treehouse or PlayStation's thing, or even just skipping it altogether and just watching the aftermath of E3 through YouTube videos and just getting the gist of it. Of course, most of these people didn't know that E3's online audience hasn't stopped growing. I, however, have come to love E3 as I tend to watch it with friends and I get to appreciate the way it binds the community together, creating good memories each year it happens. Unlike most conferences, the likes of which I've been mentioning throughout the video, I think E3 isn't just about selling stuff and consuming gaming marketing. Well, it is, but I think it also creates a special side effect. Some conventions are for showcasing innovation and consumer products. That is for sure in E3. Others are for fans to interact with one another, and I'd say that's kind of in E3 too. But I think the social gathering that E3 has become is a pretty cool synthesis of the things that make this community great and fun. Even if some people do not even tune into the event, we can see its ripple effects throughout the community. People get together and enjoy, not just gaming, but the things that come with it. Maybe they, just like me, enjoying E3. Others maybe enjoy not enjoying it and just criticizing it from afar. However, I think most of us can agree with the fact that we are all at least enjoying something together. Once a year, the heavily segmented community of gaming comes together in celebration, one way or another. And I think it's very sad that we're missing that this year. Being the case that E3 is cancelled and the fact that many think it is declining in quality and popularity, I think it's important to take this positive energy that at least I relate to E3 and pour it into new avenues. I settled on this one myself, and that's why I decided to start this channel, to create a little corner of the internet that I could call my own. And together with whoever watches my content, even if it's nobody right now, enjoy things as much as we can, at least for a little while. So thank you for watching this video, I hope you liked it, maybe you subscribed, and I hope I see you on the next one.